Hey all, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Julie and I mostly make videos surrounding topics such as music, makeup, as well as mental health. Today's video is mental health related, so it's not exactly let's get clinical because this isn't a mental health condition that is in our friend here, the DSM-5, but it is acknowledged by many mental health clinicians, especially those that work with individuals with trauma or those who identify as neurodivergent, so they are autistic or have ADHD. However, neurodivergence can entail a lot more than that, and it's really just how the client chooses to identify. So I wanted to do a video talking about this today on my webcam because I have been enduring this for so long. And I only learned about this condition myself a few months ago and was like, oh, that's been me my whole life. So before I go into talking about me, I'm sure you all are here for the psychoeducation on what it is and what we do to deal with it if we do in fact endure this mental health condition. I have some notes from a couple of websites, specifically no one really enjoys being rejected or feeling like a failure, but they typically have a different reaction to it. Even if they have a strong reaction initially, they can move forward from that and start problem solving or accept what happened and, accept rejection and failure as part of life and move forward. But for those who have this condition, it's really exacerbated because it's a very physiological response that we have, and there are some genetic components at play too. Rejection-sensitive dysphoria was initially known for only being related to ADHD. I did find a source that said 2 years ago it was a specific ADHD type of difficulty with emotion regulation, but we know emotion regulation is a difficulty for individuals with most mental health conditions outside of ADHD. So I don't think this is exclusive to people with ADHD at all. In other articles I found also were in agreement about that. Here are some signs of rejection-sensitive dysphoria: being easily embarrassed or ashamed, having an emotional outburst or getting angry when we feel rejected, setting impossibly high standards for ourselves, so perfectionism, right, and not setting realistic and manageable goals, exhibiting or experiencing low self-esteem, feeling anxious, especially in social situations, having difficulties with relationships, avoiding social situations or other people in general, so maybe some agoraphobia, avoiding public places too, right? We may feel like a failure because we haven't lived up to the expectations of others, and we may even get to a point where we consider hurting ourselves after experiencing rejection. And if that is you, please reach out to some sort of crisis hotline, crisis text line if you have a support person in your life, a loved one. If you do see a mental health clinician, you should reach out if you are ever in danger. Please keep yourself safe. That's very important. So those are some of the general signs to look out for. Another article I found described rejection-sensitive dysphoria as an extreme emotional sensitivity and emotional pain triggered by the perception or imagination by someone with a mental health condition that they've been rejected, been teased, criticized, or they have disappointed people that are important in their lives. They have withdrawn their own approval of themselves when they fail to attain their own standards or goals. And this also cites that the word dysphoria itself is actually Greek for unbearable. So this is very significant for people to go through. It says the pain is so primitive and overwhelming that people struggle to find any words to describe it. And yeah, when you really go through an incident, you're just going to mainly feel the emotion. And I talk about this with clients a lot. When we feel intensely anxious or intensely angry, we have to engage in coping skills to self-soothe and bring ourselves down. We can't really process anything while we're having a panic attack or a fit of rage. We have to be in that more baseline, moderate range to actually do the work and talk therapy. So if I had a client in that position, I would have to help them de-escalate and self-soothe, right? So they cite that people with RSD can talk about its intensity, calling it awful or catastrophic, but they can't find the words to convey that emotional pain. And it can even look like triggering a major depressive episode for people. And I definitely relate to this. That is what happened to me for the past 2 weeks. So I'm reading it and going, oh, it says that RSD can actually be mistaken for rapid cycling bipolar. So bipolar has different types, right? We have 1, 2 mixed states. We can also be rapid cycling. It's also been mistaken for borderline personality disorder because individuals with BPD also are going to have a hard time with rejection and a hard time in relationships and strong emotional reactions, so there's a lot of overlap. I am with the belief that RSD definitely happens in BPD because I do not have ADHD, but I have BPD. Moving forward, RSD can also be misdiagnosed as social phobia. Social phobia is the clinical term for social anxiety, which pertains to an intense anticipatory fear prior to going to a public event that someone's going to say or do something embarrassing in public and be scrutinized in a harsh manner. And once the person's in the situation, the anxiety may diminish or even go away, whereas RSD is a triggered, wordless emotional pain that occurs after a real or perceived loss of approval, love, or respect. So the effects of enduring RSD without any treatment or acknowledgement of this condition is a lot of avoidance behaviors, right? And we may even give up on trying new things. There may be difficulties with our self-esteem. We may have identity disturbance. We might have been on our way to figure out who we are, and we go into a social situation and we're rejected. So then we think who we are is wrong. We make a judgment about who we are, and then we question, is that really who we are? And that can be really devastating for someone to go through because having our identity intact is so crucial to our well-being, and we can't really work on self-esteem until our self-concept is there. RSD does have some treatment. According to this article I read and a clinician I spoke to in a mental health group, they talked about the medication guanfacine. I think it's specific to individuals who have ADHD, though, and endure the RSD. I'm not a big psychopharm person. I'm a clinician. I'm a holistic clinician. If you want to take medication or you do, great. I'm so happy for you, but it's a very personal decision, so I never push medication. Some of the articles I read said mental health treatment did not help. Others said it did. Some recommended cognitive behavioral therapy. I have my qualms with cognitive behavioral therapy. It is not usually culturally competent. We have to modify it to be culturally competent. It's not always affirming and trauma-informed as well, especially if we utilize it to deny someone's identity or someone who identifies as neurodivergent. We're trying to change the way they think when they've said, no, this is how I think, too bad. Also, I have complex PTSD, therefore I have complex trauma. Any of my clients who have complex trauma, I don't really use CBT with cognitive challenging and cognitive reframing, so that's where we have a thought and it's an unhelpful kind of sticky thought, and then we reframe it or we challenge it and then we feel better. The areas of CBT that I think are helpful and may help with RSD are going to be ERP, so exposure and response prevention, and then also any of the work with self-compassion, because self-compassion is so important for self-esteem. We really got to tap into that. I do believe in correcting core beliefs that people have about themselves, and that's how we heal from traumatic situations a lot of the time, addressing and acknowledging those core beliefs and trying to correct them. So core beliefs are like, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm stupid, blah, right? And to correct I'm fat, it may just be a fact, right? And then we don't want to judge that because that's fat phobic, but just giving examples when we say things to feel negatively about ourselves. We don't just switch the other way and say, I'm not a loser, I'm great, because we don't believe that. We switch and reframe to, I feel like a loser. So we state those core beliefs as a feeling instead of fact, because feelings are not facts, and that's really important to differentiate. However, I'm more so a DBT therapist, and I think DBT is wonderful for all clients. I use it with all my clients, no matter what they're coming in with, because of the emotion regulation piece. And there's been some transdiagnostic research on emotion regulation in DBT for the treatment of ADHD due to individuals often enduring low self-esteem from that. And as I previously cited, emotion regulation is very common in mental health conditions. I'd also argue that the distress tolerance aspect of DBT is going to be really helpful for people with RSD as well, because we need to self-soothe with the senses, we need to do accepts, we need to engage in distraction-based skills, and all of that work is very important. But beyond that, just radical acceptance. I have a card right here on radical acceptance. You can't really see it too well, but I'll read it to you. I'll give you a freebie DBT card that I do with clients. Acceptance is not saying what happened is okay, and acceptance is not giving up or giving in. Acceptance is acknowledging reality so you can marshal your psychological and emotional resources to move forward and heal. Learning to accept reality and then using your skills to be as effective as possible is the path forward and the way to end suffering. Yep, because if we try to run away from our emotions, numb them, etc., they're just going to be exacerbated, and ultimately in the end we'll feel a lot worse. I think ACT, acting according to your values, like that kind of modality, could also be helpful. I know a lot of clinicians like IFS. I'm not an IFS clinician, and I don't know how much I align with it, but I do like DBT, and I'm starting to dip myself into ACT. I don't think RSD is ever going to go away. I think that if we have this condition, we're going to have this strong reaction a lot of the time, but having support for it and accepting it, and also giving it a label, giving it a name and saying, hey, that's my RSD, that's kind of CBT based too, of, oh, there it is over there. That's something that's happening to me. It's not me. It's not who I am. It's something I'm enduring. I think that having this condition is very validating, and it's been studied in research, and again, it's very genetic and neurological. It's a physiological response that's happening in our body. We're becoming very activated from the rejection. So it just makes a lot of sense. And on a personal level for me, I feel like I've endured rejection my whole life. And the more I think about it, rejection is my biggest trigger, because bullying is rejection. Friendships not working out, rejection. Getting let go from an internship or job, rejection. And I think a lot of other people out there deal with this too and take it to heart. And I know I've struggled immensely with my identity and self-esteem. And I'm doing the same work I'm teaching to clients. I believe in self-compassion. I run a DBT group with my friends. I think all of these coping skills are really valuable. But they're not cures, they're treatment. They help to provide us support so that we can be our authentic selves, radically accept and embrace who we are, along with our difficult emotions and stressors, and move forward to our best ability. So that's all I have for you today. That's what RSD is. Please feel free to leave any questions or concerns in the comments. I hope you enjoyed watching. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed it. I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel as well. You can follow me on Instagram. It's Julie_counseling. And that's it. I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye all.